This video covers the IGCSE Biology Objective 2.1.3 on the 2025 CAIE syllabus to identify cell structures in images of plant, animal, and bacteria cells. So let's first take a look at an animal cell as it would look under an electron microscope. So there are some visible structures that you should be able to identify. First of all, we've got a nucleus, which, if you recall, under the animal cell does have a specific membrane around it. Inside it houses the DNA, which you can see there in the image as well, but you don't have to label. You can just say it contains genetic material. We can see the mitochondria, which, if we look under a stronger electron microscope, we can see that it is, I would say, a rod-shaped, membrane-bound organelle that has some membrane inside of it as well. You can see that's dyed the pink there with the blue filled space, and it's there on the image as well. You can see several other ones there as well. And so those are the two main components in an animal cell that you would have to recognize. You can see that there are other things there as well, but you don't need to label them or recognize them. Obviously, there is a cell membrane around the cell as well, which is not labeled here, but that is something that you could label. Let's take a look at a plant cell. So a plant cell has a few more structures that you should be able to identify. First of all, we've got the nucleus. Again, this is membrane bound. It does contain genetic information, as in the previous cell. We've got mitochondria, which are quite small, and so you might not be able to see them clearly. Again, this is an electron microscope image, so the organelles are very, very clear and very magnified. We would not see this under a compound light microscope. There is a cell wall. You can see that it is quite thick. We also do have chloroplast, which in a more magnified image you can see is a sort of oval shaped with some membrane inside. You don't have to know anything about the structure of the chloroplast itself, or know the parts of the chloroplast, but you can see that there are those smaller, I would say, disc-shaped components inside the chloroplast itself. We also have a vacuole that can be seen here, which does take up a large portion of the cell. So these are some of the parts of the plant cell in a microscopic image that you should be able to see and identify to determine if this is a plant cell or not. Just to point out that the chloroplasts are significantly larger than the mitochondria. So that is a differentiation that you could look at when you are identifying the cells. So in a bacteria cell, again, because everything is in the cytoplasm, it will be difficult to identify some parts. However, you can see that there is no specific nucleus. However, there is a very thick cell wall, and you can see that there is some genetic information in, I would say, the center of the cell. It is not in a nucleus, it is just part of the cytoplasm, and that is the circular DNA. So those are the parts that probably would help you the most to identify a bacterial cell. So let us practice. So the thing here that we want to do is identify the type of cell that we have here, and there are two structures that I've circled that should help you to identify what type of cell this is. First of all, it has a membrane-bound nucleus, and so therefore it cannot be a bacteria cell. In addition, we do see some very tiny oval structures that are scattered throughout the cytoplasm of this cell. There's nothing actually larger than this, so we can determine that there are no chloroplasts. That must be a mitochondria, and so therefore this cell can be identified as an animal cell. Let us look at this image as well. This is probably a video, a screenshot of a video image of a live cell, because it's not dyed, but that can be done under certain types of microscopes. And so there are some components here that would help us to determine the type of cell. Number one, we've got a thick cell wall. There is a space there in the largest circle, which I would determine to be a vacuole because there's nothing else there. So something is pushing the other organelles away from that space. There is a lightly outlined large round structure, which I can determine to be a nucleus. And then the green components, which would be the chloroplast. So we can determine based on those structures that this is a plant cell.